Okay, I'm going to get started with announcements. Um, the next two programs are unique in a few ways. First of all, both are at the Hudson Library, which is brand new for any of us in terms of having our meetings. It's room 219. You still have access to the same parking by the river, and I assume there's also a parking lot specific to the library. Um, the program for Wednesday, June 19th is speaking of salons, this is a different kind of salon, I suppose. It's club members providing feedback to images that club members submit for review. We did a little of this last year at the Ice Cream Social, I think. Um, but I was reminded of it again when Pete Rose presented a while ago on, I think it was video, and he mentioned that the Minnetonka Club does this kind of peer feedback. So I'll be sending out an email soon, um, inviting people to send images that they want discussed. Um, in terms of feedback, or in terms of the structure of the feedback, general idea would be for the reviewers to talk about what they like about the image and what would improve the image. So it should be pretty non-threatening and useful. Um, First week of July is the holiday, so we have nothing then. But July 17th, I am presenting. Some of you know that I've been working on creating my own photography website, and I've gotten some input from various club members, and I've researched in lots of other ways, and it's pretty well up and running. And thought it'd be useful to share what I've learned along the way with you all, in case you're interested in doing the same thing. There are many, many options to make it happen. Uh, Moving on. Oops. N4C, as I think most of you know, they take the summer off, so there's nothing happening for that. The next Wisconsin Photography Club Salon is August 7th. Due date is July 17th. The assignment is intentional camera movement. And that's it. So, Jill, I'm going to give you control.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
It's okay. We'll see if I can get my screen to display. Okay.
So I just made you host.
And I've got it. Hang on. Okay. Does it say naming your images?
Not yet.
Okay. There we go. Now I see it. There. How's that?
Now it says that, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to put a brief note. I'm not going to read this to everybody. Welcome to the June Salon, by the way. We did have quite a few images this time that had some issues, so I thought it's a good time to do just a little brief reminder. of why it's important. We were kind of picky about the way we name the images, right? It should be category, space, hyphen, space, title, space, hyphen, space, and your member number. Okay. The reason we do that is that there's a lot of manipulation that goes on of the file names and files. And when we get to the salon, we've got to display in order by score, and then we do it alphabetically, right? Well, if you don't have your hyphen correct or the space, it goofs up the sorting in my file manager folder. And then when I export it to be the list for the show, it won't be in order. Also, please do not there's some examples here. These are right on our website, so you can look there and see the top info. But if you look at the examples, just the title, no special symbols or numbers especially the beginning of the title, because I want it to be alphabetical. I don't really care about the end of the title. If you want to say Sunset 295, that's fine. But please don't have your title be the title. Also, please do not use underscores in the title. I've seen a few images come through over the past few months that have underscores before and after the title. I have to go in and take those out, and that's fine. But it takes longer, and everything I have to do leaves it open for me to make a mistake that I don't notice. So please just be aware of this. Do your best. I try to let people know when I have to fix their titles. But as we go forward, just wanted to emphasize it's not just because we're picky. Also, this is really picky, but it makes my life easier. Use the hyphen that's right next to the 0 on most keyboards. So it's the hyphen that's the not shift of the underscore. So it's the short little hyphen. If you don't use that, I have to go in and change. So just realize that we're taking a chance anytime I have to change something. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'm going to try to advance there we go. Big thank you to our judge, Mike Prokosch. Mike is retired after 37 years in chemical research for 3M. For the past 3 decades, Mike's been active in the photographic community in the Twin Cities. He's been judging at clubs, has judged for us several times, as well as regionally and internationally for the last 30 years, and has taught judging classes for the Minnesota Nature Photography Club. In addition, he's been active in the Photographic Society of America, both as a competitor, as a chairman, and as a judge of several international competitions. In 2002, he converted from imaging on film to digital imaging and has done digital photography in both the Arctic and Antarctic regions and quite a few regions between. Mike, we thank you for your effort that you've put into tonight's judging and really look forward to your remarks.
Thank you.
Okay. Without further babbling from me, we'll get right to it, and we'll start with the assignment image. The assignment was nighttime. So here we go. Start with 7s. This is sorry.
As you noted, I gave this a 7. I like the image in general. I think the colors stand out very well. The lighting on the downtown is done very well. I think if it had been done a little earlier in the day, it might have left you a little more light in the sky than what you have here. So you did have some dimness in there. Also, the branches in leaves across the top, I found a little distracting because they are in a dark area that's got a little bit of light. They just kind of look like they're lost into the system level, and also with the leaves on the right-hand side of the image. Okay.
Here is a top Mauna Kea.
Did a nice job on the night photography here. You have an interesting subject, something we normally wouldn't see in around this area at least. The Milky Way is handled pretty well. I just found it a little distracting that we lost some of the interest of the Milky Way because it runs into the top of the dish for the telescope. And drew my eye in there wanting to see more of that bottom end of the Milky Way. Also, I don't know if we needed quite that much room at the top. We have enough stars in the dark sections already. If we'd taken out a little bit more of the top of the image, it would have brought more power to the silhouette of the telescope.
Okay, here is Christmas Bear.
Oh, my wife is a Christmas movie fanatic, so I have this anti-Christmas attitude. And I hope it didn't come through in the judging of this. Again, I think the exposure is done real well. The image is lit up very nicely. Works there, but there's not a lot of composition to it. And also, I'm not sure if the vertical frame is really what we would want for this. I think we could have either gone to a square frame and brought some of the area in the top out of the image, or possibly to a horizontal frame or a landscape frame and tried to move this a little more off center to give almost some room for the bear to look into, if you want to state it in that way.
Okay, here's Dreamy Moon.
Great clouds. I mean, we got a really nice set of clouds here. There's lots of different lighting levels in it and a lot of texture going to that. The moon itself is in a spot where it's not being blurred out by the clouds very much, so it does stand out very well. I found the position of the moon possibly to be a little low in the frame. I think if you brought it up slightly to the brought it up slightly and also brought it slightly to the right, the composition would have fallen better. Also, I'm not sure if the image had enough strength to keep my interest in it. And once I looked at it, I was pretty well satisfied with what I'd seen and wanted to go on to the next image.
Here is Lake Superior Fish House.
We have an interesting image. We have, again, a good set of clouds working on there. We got a little light up in the one side of them and in that area with the stars. But the lighting of the image overall just doesn't feel natural. The star area is really quite bright back where it is. The building is really lit up more than I would expect with this kind of weather conditions and things. And also, if it looks like the light is coming from behind it when you look at the image overall, but yet the building is lit from the front, which just did not set well with my idea of what the image should look like. It seems like it was a long exposure with the water on the water being really smoothed out nicely, and I think that was done very well.
Okay, here's Milky Way Pano.
Not often you see the whole Milky Way going across the screen, and I think it's a really nice attempt there. My question more was, did we do it in the right situation with the brightness of the town or whatever that happens to be over there? Really is kind of overpowering some of the image, and there's a little bit in the right-hand side again that is, and I think really draws my attention away from the Milky Way and draws me down to that bright area on the side there. I think the elongated format of this works very well, and I think the amount of foreground in it works very well, but that lighting is just a little bit overpowering.
Here's Night Sky.
Okay. I think it's an interesting try at a night sky picture. You got nice stars in there. The blue gradient works very well. I do find the trees to be a little bit heavy and drawing me away, and also they don't appear to be quite as crisp as I would expect them to be, and therefore my eye goes down there and kind of gets lost down in those trees. Also, we have a couple of stars right on the top border, and I would like to see either a little more room up there or crop those two stars out so they're not on the border of the image.
Here is nighttime condo reflections.
Here we've got a lot of colors and things going on. We've got some nice blurs down on the bottom, but it's almost like we have two pictures. We have this abstract lighting in the bottom and we have the condo in the top, but they're given almost identical weight in the picture. They almost both are half of the image. I think we needed to emphasize one or the other, and I find the lights in the bottom more interesting. I probably would have cropped most of the condo out, just left them enough up there if you wanted to use it as a anchor for the top of the picture. But I think we need to look at the balance on this image and try to work with that a little bit.
Here is nighttime Tokyo.
Nice sharp image and really got good detail in it. Got a lot of stuff going on. I think the buildings themselves are interesting. I like the curve of the road in the bottom. I just felt that the sky was kind of being lost in here. With Tokyo and the amount of light that is given off by the city itself, unless there was something up there to reflect it back down, like clouds or something of that type, you would get this flat gray area, which I find very unappetizing. Next.
Here is rainy night in Hudson.
Again, we have an image that's got some very nice colors and nice abstract in the lighting in the bottom, and very sharp in the details in the top. I think all of that works real well. I do think the sign in the upper right, the white sign, and the little area above it tend to be distracting to the rest of the image, and draw your eye over to those where everything else is colored. Then you have that one white area and with some lettering on it, which finds it pulls you over there a lot. So either we could have cropped that, or if we have room elsewhere, leave something else in with it to balance it out. Next.
Remembering the Fits.
Okay. I'd say in 30 years of judging, I've seen a lot of lighthouse shots. That probably goes second only to Canadian geese, but it's very nicely done. I think that got a nice cloudy night there. The lighting is such that it is draws your eye into it. You got the nice reflection in the water coming out the bottom. I feel it could have used a little more contrast, and if we could have worked on modifying the light, especially to the trees to the left of the lighthouse, so they were not a distraction pulling you over there, and you would have just the lights on the lighthouse showing up.
Here is Sunset Tracks.
I looked at this one a lot. It's a very simplistic image as far as subject, but it's very strong. You got that nice color in the background being reflected off the rails, and it just draws you back, following the rail back into it. For some people, it may be drawing from the wrong side since we're going from right to left, but I tend to do most of my photography backwards, so that would fit for me. I think it needed a little toning down of the yellows in the center of the image, and that would help emphasize the rails a little bit more and really drag you into that image.
Okay, moving into the acceptances, we will start with Blue Bridge from Mike Schrun.
I like the Blue Bridge. I really think the top 2/3 of the image are really nice, and you got that nice blue line going across. You got all the detail in the background there, nice starburst and stuff. I found the bottom 20% not to be really adding anything to it. So if I would crop up from the bottom to about, well, just short of the base of the center post there in the river, so it would take off some of those reflections in the bottom, which are being cut in half by the frame anyways, and that would help draw some of that around. And I'm a little questionable on if I could move my position or play with it a little bit to not have so much weight on the foreground right side and that tends to be a little bit heavy. Very nicely done.
Here's Floating from Jennifer Rosniak.
Okay, this was not judged as part of the assignment because it had been done apparently for a previous month. So I judged it more as an open category. I thought the action was real good on it. The image itself is very sharp. They're caught in a nice position, and you can see everything that is going on. The background is not distracting at all. I do have a little problem with the one wire running in front of the gentleman, but considering what they're doing, I don't think you could probably take that wire out of there.
Okay, here's Hennepin Avenue Bridge from Terry Butler.
Much like the last one we had, the bridge is done very nicely. The colors are nice. I like the light blue tint to everything. It gives it a little bit of warmth to or cold to it. And the reflections in the bottom are very nice. If I did anything to it at all, and the only reason it got an 8 was I found the boats and the light reflections on the very right side to be a little distracting. And I probably would have cropped it in to the second lamp on the bridge to try to eliminate that distraction. Very nicely done again.
Okay, here is Itasca Milky Way and Meteor. And this is from Diane Cisco.
Beautiful night shot. You got the Milky Way very nicely defined. You got some of the colors in it, which is nice to see some of that color that goes with the Milky Way. And then you have a nice graduated color from the brightness of that spot in the bottom, which I assume is a city or something behind there somewhere, a town. But then it gradually goes up through darker and darker areas to get to the very dark sky at the top. There's enough of the foreground so you have a base to work with, and it just is a very pleasant image to look at.
Lightning Strike by Chappie Aiken.
I gave this one a higher score, partly for the timing. You got a really nice lightning strike in the middle. It's very strong. The foreground is all pretty well defined. It gives you an area of information there and the road and things going through it, draw you back to the lightning. But it really doesn't need much effort to draw you back because that lightning just sucks your eye right in. Nothing really I'd change on this.
Here's Tokyo Tower from Marianne Sear.
Okay. If you compare our previous Tokyo shot, I think it had a slightly more interesting foreground, but a sky that I didn't like. This one, I really like the clouds reflected in there and the variation, the darkness of the clouds. You kind of feel it's going to be a stormy night or whatever going on with it. You have all that detail there with the Tokyo Tower then placed in a strong spot in the image to get your eye and keep it captured in there.
Moving on to the 9s, we have Loring District from Dennis Kroll.
I thought it was a very simple image, just very nicely done. This could be the Loring District, it could be a town in Germany, it could be anything, but it just has that nice nice steeple back there to hold your eye up in that, and then all the detail in the building in the foreground. The sign in the bottom is a little distracting, but it wasn't strong enough to really bother me much. And there's really nothing else in it to draw your eye away from the main subject.
All right, finally, 10s, or the
I
10.
thought
Here's
I gave
Penny
it
Bryan's Magical Skies. Sorry.
I don't think I have to talk about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a beautiful image, rare capture. We don't get these things all the time, and everything is really done well. So we'll just leave it at that.
All right. So let's go to creative. We are going to start with the 7s, and we'll start with Catedral de la Amun. Oh, I practice this. Almudena, Madrid.
Oh, beautiful subject. And nicely done. Got a nice symmetry between the two sides. It works very well. It's got the organ and the ceiling to be contrast to the rest. But I wasn't quite sure why it was creative. So I assumed something has been done to it, but I could not determine myself what it is. And I felt I could not give it a higher score without having some feeling of why it was created.
Okay. Next is Dazzling Macaw. Marianne, sorry,
Go ahead.
Marianne Jers.
Uh, a very nice image of the bird itself with the head and stuff, and then using the blur techniques and things to hyphen it all together. I think worked very well. I would like to see just a little more room around it. I feel like it's crammed in there too much. It's got some room to move into, but we've lost a little of the tail, and we've lost some of the wing up on top. But the effect works very well, and the image that was started with looks like it was very well done.
Here's new growth lumber for A-frame houses.
The title works real well. I'm not sure if I have ever seen lumber like this, but it's an interesting image. Just it did not tend to draw me in. There's a symmetry there and everything goes very well, but maybe it needs something else in there to carry your interest for a set amount of time. Uh, good ideas. I'm not sure what else to say about it.
Alrighty. Next we have Preening Swan.
The swan is, nicely abstracted, made to look watercolor. I think we got a little too far and we lost too much detail in this. So we've got it so far watercolor look, or however you want to put it, that it doesn't really hold together as an image. Also, I thought compositionally, you had a lot of room to the right and above it that wasn't necessary. I think you'd take 10% off the top and 10 or 15% off the right, and that would make it a slightly stronger image.
Okay, here is Storm Crow.
Yeah, nice idea. I think the crow itself needs to be bigger in there. I've got a mark on my screen there. Keep wanting to tell people they have something on their image, but it's my screen. The I don't think the subject is strong enough in the image to carry it. I think we made the crow a little bit bigger, maybe twice the size it is. That would have given us something more to fill the area instead of having all that dead space, which really isn't necessarily strong in itself.
Okay. Moving on to the acceptances. We have Creative, I'm sorry, A Kid at Heart. This is from Chap Aiken.
I think you did a good job on all the techniques you did here. The capture itself looks like it was done pretty well, if that is the capture that was done or was put in. The emphasis of the sky works very well, and the buildings and things around it tend to not distract from anything. I think the distraction really is the border. I would take about 90% of that border away. There's just too much white there. And for that reason, I did not move it higher in the scores.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. I'm okay. We might be a little, all right, might be a little out of order on your sheet, Mike, because now it's going to the
Now, this should be a second
category. Struggled with this today. This is Cat and Plant in Window.
The image, I think, Yeah, the idea is really good there. I think we need to work on the lighting more than anything else. We have a lot of detail through the window, but then everything on our side of the window is really heavily into the shadows. I think we need to reflect a little bit of light back into that, or a very subtle fill flash, one of the two would work. So we could get some detail in that front end of the image to offset the softness behind it. Uh, the placements are fine. I think it's just a thing of playing with different situations there.
Okay, so my apologies. In renaming this, I put an I in front of it. We haven't gone to that yet. It was actually pictorial. So let's go to nature. Sorry about that. I was having some issues. Start with the sevens. And we're going to start with alpha and omega.
A different nature image. The life and death, you want to look at it that way, all portrayed together here. Both the death of the leaves and the death of the skulls. Then you have the blossom and the green leaves to go with it. However, I think it needs a little explanation almost when you're looking at it, or what they want you to see. The image itself, I think, was done well. It just does not really stand up against some of the other images as a nature image.
Whoops, sorry. I had a twitchy finger. Okay. This is cheetah on anthill.
I fought back and forth on this one a lot. I like the cheetah. I like the background is handled very nice. The foreground is not a problem at all. But do I want to see that much of a profile, or do I want a little more of the head turn towards me? Not necessarily at me, but a little more in this direction. Feels like I lose the head and the face when I go up to that area.
Okay. Here's early morning at Gooseberry Falls.
I get a really hard situation here to photograph. You got a beautiful waterfall in the background. You got this wonderful what you're trying to show me, but you've got to find a way to put it all in a frame and work with it. And I think, first of all, that branch in the upper right corner is a very big distraction, and that hurts it a lot. And then I think we have a little more of the uh, image in the right, or sorry, in the left that is unnecessary. I think you could have brought it in basically to that first big trunk, not the one at an angle, but the more straight one. And that would have eliminated that little bit of water that's coming down on the outside of that trunk, which I find distracting because it's a bright spot up in the corner of the image when my eye wants to go to the other end of the waterfall.
Okay. Here's great grit.
Beautiful bird. Sharp, nicely done. Whites are held together well. Background is done pretty well. Um, Wing position, kind of so-so. Normally, I want them either more up or more down. Um, but I think the biggest problem for me was, and I don't think you can really correct it easily, is that little bit of area in the bottom, which I assume is water, is drawing me down there because it's a little bit bright compared to a lot of it, and has taken my interest away from the bird. And I want to find out what that is in the bottom. Next.
Okay. Here is jewels in the forest.
With your title, I understood what you were trying to do. But I think a couple of things here. One, we have to be really careful of our backgrounds. We have those very white areas up, and especially in the upper left, but also along the trunk of the tree there. Um, and they tend to be a little distracting. I think they're out of focus nicely. And also, if you wanted us to look at the leaves as the jewels, we need to emphasize those more. They're very small in the image. I see more of the trunk and the things growing on the trunk than I do the leaf. So either I would want to move in closer and try to emphasize that a little bit, or find a better group of leaves where they would fill more of the frame.
Here is Jurassic Moment.
Another one, I love the title. It makes me think a little now and then. I think the action is very nice here. The two birds are well placed. The image in all ways is strong. I think it just, the bird on the left to me is in an awkward situation with the wing placements and things. And also I felt there were other images that were stronger overall. Next.
Here is Loon, a Nest.
Another very nice image. The loon on the nest is very pretty. I love the stalks showing a little bit of curvature from the wind, I would assume it is, but it's done very well. However, do we need this much in the image to tell us our story? I think the left 10 or 15% is unnecessary and just distracts. If you crop it almost to the edge of the little piece of land there that the loon is on, we would retain the same story, but yet emphasize the loon a little bit more, and possibly also just bring a hair off the top to take some of that brightness on that area away.
Okay. Here is Ready for Takeoff.
You kind of got the critical moment there. He's just had just thrown up the water behind him. He's just dragging the toes a little bit. But again, the wing placement, excuse me, the wing placement is very awkward. The one wing you can see somewhat, the other wing is really lost in the picture. And I think those are necessary part of the image, and you have to get that timing to get those wings out a little bit more. A very sharp image, very nicely toned, and I think the color of the water works very well.
All right, here's a tongue twister for me. Sand Snail Snack.
Yep. This is some of the prettiest water I've seen for a while. The reflections in it and the color graduations are really nice, but I think we just have way too much of it. We want to show the sandpiper eating its snack there, and we have 20% in the image of the bottom and probably another 20% at the top that are not our subject of interest. They're just filling space. So if we could crop up from the bottom and crop down for the top, leaving at least one of those white areas in, if not two of them, that are above the bird, I think you'd have a stronger image. Also, you depending what your initial exposure looked like, whether you wanted a vertical or horizontal would be a decision to make also.
Here's Shades of a Red Admiral.
A very pretty image. The Red Admiral is very nicely done. I don't know why. I just cannot, with the colors that are there, I cannot focus on the head and that area of the butterfly. It just kind of gets lost in the image for some reason. And therefore, I feel like I'm kind of cheated. I got all this beautiful pattern up on top, and then I kind of lose the bottom end of the image. I don't think it's anything you did. I think it has to do with what was there and what your eye can see, but your camera doesn't necessarily see the same thing you do. Next.
Here is Please for Sigh.
Kind of nice to see black and white in nature. We don't get a lot of it anymore. It used to be a lot more common. However, this one again, I think has a couple of flaws. One, there are some white spots in different areas that are a little bit blown out. I assume it's reflection off of the trees where the sun was coming through in a small area or something. Also, the heavy border, again, I think you need to chop that in about half to eliminate that so it doesn't overpower the image. And myself would like to see a little more base to this. It just seems like we have these trees hanging in midair. And even though they're very interesting, they tend not to give you something to grab on and hold with.
Here's wood duck flight.
The good capture of the wood duck itself, a little bit bright in a few areas, but woodies are notorious for having bright spots and reflections and things off them. So that's kind of forgivable. I guess the bigger question is the inclusion of the reflection in the bottom being so far away from the bird itself in the image a help or a hindrance? Because you almost get to the point where you're jumping between the two and you look at one a little bit and you look at the other a little bit, but you don't see them as a combined image.
Okay, here is woodpeckers.
You got the two woodpeckers and they're doing what woodpeckers do, but they really aren't a very strong part of the image. And also the two birds, we don't have a really good um, uh, we really don't have a good view of the birds themselves. I think the branch in the foreground intersects part of the one bird, and the other one is kind of got a little bit ahead, but is tilted up enough we're not really seeing it very well. One of those situations you need to watch your position, and I probably need more lens. The first one is easily corrected. The second one is a money game, and I understand why most people don't have bigger lenses. So we'll go with that.
All right. Moving on to the acceptances, we'll start with Baltimore Oriole, and this is from Joseph Schuffman.
Caught a beautiful position for the bird. I like the spread stance between the two branches. You got the beautiful flowers that it's standing in. Nothing's really interfering with the bird itself. Background has nothing in it to bother you. So it all went together very well. One of those things of going back to, is there much of a nature story there? And I think I marked it out because there's really not a lot of story. It's back to the bird on a stick type of attitude. Next.
Is Pale Mouse Blackbird from Carl Wagner.
I really want this image to work. I like it. I think you caught it something interesting. He's pulling off the fuzz or the seeds and doing his thing. It just the seeds he's dealing with are a little hard to see, but not drastically. So I just deducted a little bit for that. And otherwise, I really liked it.
All right. Here's Fly Like an Eagle from Carl Wagner.
Good flight shot. Wings are nicely spread and they got light underneath them and coming through them, which is really good. The vertical sticks and things in there probably aren't helping you any, but it is part of the habitat and part of the story. The bird is extremely well done, so I think you did as well as you could.
Here's Male Bittern Spring from MJ Springett.
Nice capture of the bittern. The colors in it, I think, are wonderful. The tones in the tones in the leaf or in the feathers are very nicely brought on. The graduation of all that in there. It'd be nice if it had been in a totally tan area like the background more, but the green does not hurt anything. It just would seem more natural in the other area.
Here's Picking Flowers from Teddy Bryan.
Okay. This one's kind of backwards from a lot of my comments. The image itself is probably taken on the wrong day and the wrong light, and it's a little harsh, but it is a story that just carries it continually. A bear cub doing its thing with the lupin, I think, is a strong enough story that we can ignore the technical end of it.
Okay. Here is View Out the Back 40 from Mick Richards.
Nice motion picture. The one foreground tree really holds your eye in the picture, and then everything around it just kind of makes it draws you into that center. So no matter which side you come in from, you end up at that trunk, and I think that worked very well. I love the tonality of the other brush in the foreground, and that worked out really well with the color of the trunks.
Sorry, I didn't take out the 10 slide. We're moving on next to the cell phone photos, starting with 7, Cactus Bloom.
I think the cell phones nowadays are really good. It's amazing what natural. It may be the sky behind them or whatever, but the coloring and things of it just doesn't quite seem reasonable. I'm getting Wi-Fi messages here.
I
And
thought it was me.
but it's, considering what it is, I think it's a very well done image, and I don't know what to tell you else about it.
Okay. Let's go on to December Afternoon.
Okay. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be a straight shot or if it's supposed to be reworked or whatever. It's an interesting shot. It's got some beautiful color graduations, that dark band in the middle. The problem for me was the black areas uh, just above the, I assume is the water line or whatever, are kind of breaking up, and they're blocky and don't feel right. And everything's kind of grainy and soft. Feels more like it should have been in a creative area than in a general competition. And I think in that form, it just didn't have the strength to carry it through to a higher number.
Okay. Here's Depot Bay, Oregon.
I like what you're trying to do here. I think the image is very pretty. A beautiful day out there. A couple little things are picky, but there's one tall weed sticking up, about a third of the way in on the left, that draws my eye because it goes into the other point and doesn't really come out of there much. But more so, I think we could have changed our angle a little bit, whether we could drop ourselves down a little or whatever. You get most of the white flowers above the black rock, so it'd be standing out a little bit better than they are here. They kind of get lost in that jumble of rocks a little bit. And that hopefully we could have done that and also just kept the rest of the framing kind of the same. But it is a beautiful image.
Here is Poppies at Sunset.
Somebody was thinking on this one. I really like the image. Again, the heavy border tends to bother me a little bit, but I'm not going to say too much there. More so in this, I think the real interest is the backlit pods and the backlit poppies. And we have that line of material in the upper or middle right that is above the what looks like to be a vineyard. And that material is kind of drawing your eye over to it because it is lighter colored than white. So you got all this beautiful layers back there, but then you get caught up in that material up there. Again, if we could have changed our position just slightly or changed the camera angle maybe a little, we might have been able to hide those a little bit by dropping down so those were hidden behind the flowers a little more. Next.
Next we have Rays on Mountains.
Beautiful image. I mean, we caught a day where things were just going right. You had all these beautiful rays coming down, but I think the tree in the one corner is kind of unnecessary. We could have cropped in from the left to get rid of that without losing any of the background. And the other items that are on the, I guess it'd be the skyline, if you want to put it that way, are very small and indistinguishable and almost bothersome because you start trying to concentrate on what those are instead of looking at just the overall prettiness of the image. Wonderful set of clouds, wonderful set of rays, and I think we need to emphasize those in all we can.
Okay, here's the right angled lighthouse.
Yeah, this probably the first time I've seen this technique done. Not sure if I really want to see it or not. I don't. It just didn't work for me. It's a nice technical exercise, but does it hold your interest and does it really give you something that you're comfortable with? And I find it to be very uncomfortable to my eye.
Okay. Next is the acceptances. We will start with the eights and we'll start with drops. And this is from J. Olson Goody.
That's a name I haven't heard for a while. Nicely done image. The diagonal of the leaf is done very well. The magnification of the veins due to the water emphasizes those areas a little bit. Just a few minor things. I think we could have cropped a little bit out of the top. I think there's a little more there than we need. And I really am bothered that the tip of the leaf is missing. It, one of those things sometimes it's don't notice, but it just draws your eye down there. And I really want to see the leaf totally in the frame.
Okay, here's Mary Johnson's on Crackley Lane.
A wonderful leading line there and down to those beautiful colors. You got all those colors, and you got a great day for the clouds. The clouds are textured, they look like they're moving. Everything just feels good about this. I felt we didn't need quite as much on the left side there, and it was a little heavy because of that. I actually would rather see a little more on the right and a little less on the left.
All right. Fingers. Oh, sorry, we don't have any 9s or 10s. We're going on to pictorial now. And with luck, this is 9/11 Remembrance.
Great story. You know, you get at right away, and especially with all the events we've had here the last few months, you definitely know what's going on. Seen way too many of these. The image itself, I think it leads you back into it real well. I don't know if we could have shot with a little more depth of field. Did not look to see what the f-stop was on this, but it'd be nice to get that in there. And just I think the little bit of light right on the very edge, right edge of the image behind the first ambulance, or could be cropped into that, eliminated by being cropped into that first ambulance just a little bit. But nice image.
Here's a stream runs through it.
A beautiful part of the country, a nice mountain in the background. Probably not in Minnesota or Wisconsin. Water is handled well. Is there enough stream to hold your interest? You got this little bit of rapids in the bottom, but then it just kind of disappears. And I think the background is more
Sorry.
interesting. That's all right.
I
The
just had to.
background is more interesting than the foreground in that way because we have all that gravel in between, which really is not that attractive.
Okay, here's all lined up to view the parade.
Uh, I'd been looking at some 3D images, and I almost want to get my 3D glasses out with this one. I'm not sure what we wanted to show, but I find it very uh, difficult to look at because of the repetition of the images and how they were put together. Um, I agree they're all lined up, but I really like to see a little closer to realistic than this.
Okay, here's Aurora ahead.
Uh, the Aurora's done pretty well. I like, some of it's got some decent greens up there, a couple of stars throwing through it. The extreme canting from the wide angle effect, I don't know if you could have done some stretching up there to make that a little less. It really is uncomfortable to my eye. And then there's that one bright white sign on the left that is kind of drawing your eye over there. So I would have either tried to clone that out of there or to color it somewhat differently so it wasn't quite so bright in the system.
Okay. Here's Thingies.
Nice close-up study. If you want to look, this is a close-up. Nice detail in the boats, and you can see they've been painted over a few times. They're rough from that. There's a gone, but yet it's a nice, simple image as far as your eye just kind of wanders around between the two. I find the black to be a little overpowering in the, which I assume is the water there. It just doesn't feel to me quite natural. And considering the bolts are done pretty much straight, I'd like to see a little more difference in that one.
Okay. Here's Full Arc.
You get the full arch in there, yep, and beautiful rainbow and nicely done. The nice clouds behind it give it something to set off. Uh, I think we have a little more foreground than we need. Um, if we could have taken a couple steps forward and gotten uh, a little more expansion of that area back there without having the tree in it, I think would be a benefit. Lighting is a really tough situation because you got some very bright lighting in the background and you got a dark road in the foreground. You kind of lose that foreground.
God's Majesty.
Again, kind of comments I made earlier at the very wide angle like this, you do get these distorted images. And in some ways they are hard on the eyes, especially the trees on the right are almost falling over into the church, it looks like. And some of that's bothersome. Whether we could, do some manipulation or play with it a little bit, or maybe come more straight onto the church instead of having it at an angle like that would help eliminate some of that distortion.
Okay. Gooseberry Falls.
Okay. We've got an interesting landscape here. You got this wonderful trees along the side there with all the roots, and you got nice waterfall behind. And then we chose a rock as our foreground that really doesn't have much texture or much attitude to it, and really doesn't almost looks like it was placed there from the way it's sitting, and it just doesn't really work as a uh, focal point for this image. Also, there's a little area up at the top where it looks like there's some structure. Normally that isn't a bothersome thing, but it for some reason it grabs my eye. I think the line of trees on the left there are probably the most interest of the image, and yet they're the things that are kind of being run out of the image.
Okay. Here's Live Long and Prosper.
Yeah, got to be a Truckee fan, I guess. So. Bird is done nicely, very sharp, very interesting, different pose, but it's got all this little stuff around it. Nothing really interferes with it. The bird's pretty clean by itself. Good detail. You got a different pose, and nothing really distracting from it.
Here is Monochrome Dancer.
Interesting shot. I mean, the dancer's in a position where it's different that way. It's not, to me, it's not a very comfortable position, but that's what she's in. The dress coming up behind her almost looks like wings, so it makes it a little bit interesting. But I do think the lighting in a couple of the areas is a little harsh, and it draws your eye away from just the overall picture, if you want to look at that, with the overall pattern of her. And I think it's the pattern that is interesting, not necessarily the details.
Here's Paramount Marquee.
We've got a lot of different things going on here. The Paramount sign, of course, is the main part of the image, and we got it right down the center, and it really is pretty staticky because of that. That first building on the right is not necessary. You probably could have cropped in past that. That would have brought that Paramount off center a little more. I'm not sure on the original image if you have more space on the right or the left to work with. If you had a little more room on the left and could shift that whole frame over slightly, I think you would have a stronger image.
Okay. Power plant.
Interesting shot. We got another night shot, which we saw a bunch of night shots earlier, were all pretty good. This one again is pretty good. It's got some beautiful coloring to it between the tungsten lighting or whatever happens to be there, giving us a little bit of orangish glow, and the structure itself. But again, we seem to have a lot more interference from the tree on the right, and we kind of truncated the building real quickly on the left. So I think it's one you need to play with a few different compositions on to get something that works. We do see a lot of little branches coming in from the side and from the top, and some of those are a little distracting.
Arista Beach.
Beautiful place. Really nice area, nice background for everything. The clouds look pretty good. But we really don't settle in anywhere. The lower or the far foothills are so faded out that it's really hard to determine what you want to look at there. And we've got so much room on the left of this image that's really not giving us any additional information. If we had worked some of that left side off and concentrate more on those areas where there is some detail, I think we might have a little bit better image. And depending on whether off the left there's a corner with the water or not, it'd be nice if there was a corner you could work through that area then.
Okay. Here is Scotland.
I'm not really sure when I look at this, if it yells anything to my mind. You got a small, well, it appears to be a small island in front of a large hill, but it really doesn't get defined very well. Then you got these very bright areas along with it that are reflecting off light, reflecting off the water, and that tends to uh, tends to draw my eye down to that. I don't really see the details in the hill that much. I think this might have been a little bit stronger as a semi-panoramic. Take off a little of the water and take off a little of the top and see if that works a little bit better.
Here's the last resort.
Um, I think it's an interesting subject, but I think we really need to work on what we want to show with it. The structure to the left of it, or sorry, to the right of it, is really not helping anything. We could have brought that crop right up to the edge of the sign there. And depending what is off in the distance to the right, maybe by changing our angle a little bit, we could have put something in to give more of a feeling of where this is or what it is.
Okay. Here's Winter Moon.
I fought back and forth on this one, and I'm not really sure if I ever did decide what I was going to do with the scoring on it. And finally ended up giving it a 7, I guess. It's a nice line of trees. They got beautiful frost on them. Everything is very nice. The moon up there or something. But for some reason, it just seems like it's missing something structurally or composition, but I could never really decide what to do with it. So I congratulate you for the image, but I'm sorry I didn't give you a better score.
All right, well, we're going to move on to the acceptances now. And we're going to start with Maasai in Desert from Diane Cisco.
I thought this was a wonderful shot of photo travel. We got the Maasai with their red and orange is always on, and showing the country they live in and they survive in, which is, pretty desolate. It's not really much there. I'm for my own taste, I might have cropped in a little bit from the left, just to maybe halfway to the people there, and that would have given them again a little more emphasis. Um, the rest of it, I think, is done well.
Here's Mott Mott with Courtship Leaf.
Considering some of my statements earlier about a bird on a stick, this is a bird on a stick, but it's a nicely done bird. The background has such wonderful graduations of colors and things going on back there, bright and dark areas, but it is not distracting at all. The bird itself is spectacular. I mean, this is not something we see around here, and it's got so much detail in all those little areas. And then you got that wonderful long tail hanging up the back.
Okay, and that image was from Marianne Jerks. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Next, On the Pier from Fred Sabatka.
Another one I really liked. I think the sky is great. The sky makes this thing. But, I gave it an 8 only because I think there's a little too much foreground. I think we could have cropped up to that first post, without losing anything. That would have given us a little more of a panoramic feel to it, and also would have eliminated some area, which then would increase the emphasis of the people on the pier.
Here is Raindrops on Crested Iris from Marianne Sear.
Beautifully done image of a flower on a very wet day. And I think the photographer did a good job of being out there in the rain. Again, I might have changed the cropping just a little bit to bring the left side in to just short of Well, either the tip at the top with the drop on it or the curl on the bottom, because they're basically on the same plane. I want to keep those tips in there, but I don't know if I needed that much area before I got to them. That also would have gotten rid of that one little bright spot in the very left bottom corner.
Okay. Here's teamwork from Kimberly Vetterkind.
Photojournalism is really hard to do, I think, and I really appreciate people that can go out and do it. I think you got a great story here on the teamwork. I have no idea what they're spraying down there, but they're spraying something down. But you can see everyone being kind of leaning into it, keeping everything together. Background on this is surprisingly clean for a full journalism shot. There's a couple of lights back there, but really nothing else that's bothersome. Very nicely done.
Into the nines. Here's Clearing the Hurdles from Betty Bryan.
Great timing on it. I think the expression on her face, the concentration there, and then the two pigtails hanging out behind are just wonderful. Great capture for photojournalism.
And finally, Ringneck from MJ Springett.
Nicely done, very sharp, beautiful water. Again, if we wanted to make it a little more panoramic, it wouldn't hurt. I don't think it has to be done. But the good nature story of the pair in the water and the pretty rough water for a change, so that gives us a nice feeling for the textures that are there.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your images. Thank you, Mike, our judge, for your thoughtful commentary. The next deadline is...
Here at the end.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to do this. It was an interesting set of images. I'm sorry about the hacking. It's middle pollen season and I'm dying. That's the way it goes. I also, a couple things to pass along. One is, if anyone is interested, John Penoyer and myself are working a butterfly photography class up at Crex Meadows in the end of July. And you can go on their website, friendsofcrex.com, to look into that. Also, for the anyone that's interested, the first Saturday of every month, I'm up at Crex Meadows at their visitor center, and we'll do image critiques, talk about equipment, whatever we want. We call it Photo Saturday, and I'm pretty much open to anything for anyone that walks in. Not really getting killed with people so far, so hopefully it'll continue on for a while. Thank you.
That's a great opportunity. Thank you, John, for inviting us to that. So next deadline, July 17th. Next assignment is intentional camera movement. So have fun with that. And with that, I'll turn it back to Steve, maybe, if I can figure out how to do that. And we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Good Salon, good comments. See you in a couple weeks.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve.
I'm going to end the meeting.
Okay.